Hello and welcome to Hermetic Journeys. Hey, we're finally going to be going back to Atalanta Fugiens after our three-part series on alchemy and the alchemical processes and the worldview. My goodness, thank you for sticking through that with me because now we have a much better understanding, even if it's from, 50,000 feet, of what goes on in the alchemical lab, right? Plus, as Michael Meyer goes through Atalanta Fugiens, he will mention some of these processes and we will know what the hell he's talking about, which is pretty cool because most of the time, when I first looked at Atalanta Fugiens, I thought it was just nonsense. I was ignorant. I didn't have the background to understand it. But now I'm beginning to understand it. Again, just a student. Okay? So, before we continue, I do want to mention that there is a companion video that's linked with this video. And in the future, there will be other companion videos that are linked to a particular video about Atalanta Fugiens because the companion videos are really subject matter that I felt wasn't integrally important to the emblem itself, but in the big picture was very, very important for us to understand or get a better understanding of something, a concept or a theory, and that's what these companion videos are for. And you'll see there's a link from this video to the companion video if you want to watch it. The companion videos are going to be a little longer. They're going to be more detailed and go into specific theories and alchemical processes. So if you don't really care about that stuff and you just want to learn about Atalanta Fugiens, fine, don't watch it. But if you want to get more into the nitty-gritty, by all means, check it out, because I worked hard on it. Okay, so let's jump into emblem number 3. And as you can see on your screen, we have a woman washing clothes. In fact, the motto is, go to the woman who washes the sheets and do as she does. So Michael Meyer is telling alchemists to take a look at these simple processes, all right, but simple but very important processes. If we look closely at this image, actually we don't have to look too closely, but there's a furnace to her left, obviously an allusion to the calcination process or the furnace that alchemists used back then called an athanor. And it kind of even almost looks like one. You can see there's a big vat with the clothes in it, and she's pouring hot water, and there are fumes and vapors coming out of that, right? And then at the bottom, there's another barrel catching the runoff. So it just kind of looks almost like the calcination process and the distillation process, doesn't it? We talked about distillation. We were talking about plants, the spagyrics. Kind of reminds me of that, okay? So that may be what's going on, but what I would like to say is certainly there are two phases of the alchemical operation happening here, which I would say would be the black phase, all right, through the furnace, and the white phase through the washing of the clothes, all right? We're taking the dirt out of the clothes, we're purifying the clothes, if you will. This is a wonderful metaphor that Michael Meyer is using, and he elaborates on that in the epigram. Let not he who loves scrutinizing secret dogmas neglect to take as an example everything that can help him. Okay, so he's saying here, don't think that you know it all, okay, because the little things that may get by us could be very, very important. Like this analogy of washing clothes. It's a great analogy for purifying things because everyone can identify with washing clothes. Not everyone can identify with using antimony to purify mercury. Okay? All right, now the epigram gets into a little more detail. And he says, don't you see how a woman is accustomed to cleaning dirty laundry by pouring hot water over it? Follow her example so that you will not fail in your art, for the water washes the precipitation of the black body away. Okay, so he's saying, look at this as an example. Okay, as a metaphor. The woman's pouring hot water over the clothes to purify them. Well, water in alchemical parlance doesn't mean water. It can mean solutions, right? It can mean mercury, okay? Remember we use mercury to break down the gold to create the philosopher's stone, okay? So this is interesting here, which says, follow her example so that you will not fail in your art. The alchemical process or operation was known as the great art. We've kind of touched on that, so just keep that in mind. That's what he's referring to here, okay? Okay, so now we're going to jump into the discourse. And the discourse has some very interesting components to it, and he gets a little more specific as we go along. As you know what Michael Meyer does, is peeling back the onion, right? Okay, big honking onion. So he says here, it starts out by saying, if the dirt in the linen comes from the earth, it is cleaned with the next element, that is water. So here he's talking about matter, the prima materia, okay? And he's using the natural processes as an example here, all right, just like the woman washing clothes, okay? After that, it is exposed to the air, and thereupon freed from moisture, and dirt at the same time by the fire, the fourth element, in this case by the sun warmth. So he's telling us here the elements that exist in this world do the same thing. The alchemist is emulating these processes that occur in nature in the alchemical lab. Remember, a deep and profound respect for nature. I think that's what he's talking about here, okay? A little further. If this process is often repeated, even the dirtiest things become clean again. Obviously, he's talking about things that we've talked about in the previous video on the alchemical processes, right? After the amalgam was completed with the mercury and the gold and the antimony and all that stuff, right? It was distilled. We're instructed to distill it 7 to 10 times. Okay, so he's saying that very same thing here. If this process is often repeated, even the dirtiest things become clean again. Okay, so we're distilling this, we're purifying this matter, the prima materia. Okay, and now he uses a specific example in nature as an animal who has perished in the forest. Okay, he says, for animals' bones, which were first black and unclean, became repeatedly drenched by rain and dried by sun warmth, so that at last they became completely white, as Isaac states. Right, so here he's saying, these natural processes, we can see that acting upon an animal's bones. Okay, the animal's bones were unclean, and then it was washed by the rain and dried by the sun and became clean. What does that sound like? Well, the white phase, right? The purification process. And Isaac is someone that you'll have to check out in the companion video to this one, okay? He's a very famous alchemist and has written several works on alchemy. In fact, it's interesting, he and his son, who bore the same name as the father, worked together. So it's kind of a father-son team. It's very, very cool because there's not much information on him. It's Isaac Halandus, but he's a very interesting figure, and you'll learn about that in the companion video, should you choose to select it. Okay, all right. Now let's go down a little further here. He gets more specific concerning the purification of things. So aren't you glad we looked at the phases of alchemy, right? Because otherwise we'd be like, what is he talking about here, right? Now we have a sense, okay? We may not know specifically what he's talking about, but we have a general sense, which is really, it's about as good as I can do. Okay, here we go. The same happens to the philosophical subject. First, it is coarse and dirty, but the philosophers cleanse it with philosophical water till it is white and perfect. Now the philosophers are the alchemists. It's just another title for an alchemist. Philosophical water is actually mercury, or any water, any liquid that has been purified to break down our metals or our plants or whatever. Okay? The whole process of calcination, ascending, dissolving, distillation, precipitation, coagulation, hardening, and the other processes are prepared by one washing. For he who uses water to wash something which is unclean does something that is also achieved in many other ways. Now he's mentioning alchemical processes here that we did not cover in the alchemy video. And I did that because there are many, many alchemical processes, and I wanted to streamline it and simplify it so that we could get an understanding of what is going on in this process, okay? So there are a few here that he mentions that we did not cover. But it's okay, because they're essentially all doing the same kind of thing, right? We're breaking things down, we're purifying them, and we're putting things back together. That's pretty much the alchemical process, right? So he mentions someone very interesting here. For the clothes of King Deunech, who is featured in Emblem 28, which are dirty with sweat, have to be washed by fire, says the Rosarium Philosophorum, and they have to be burnt by water. So who the hell is King Deunech? Okay, well, King Deunech is actually featured in Emblem 28. He's a king who gets very sick, and he consults a doctor, a physician, who assists him with his malady. Right? If you want to learn more about King Deunech, you have to actually go to the companion video because I really covered it in a lot of detail. Because he's not just a person. I'll leave it with that. It's very, very interesting. Okay, he represents something. There's another clue. Okay, and the Rosarium Philosophorum is a beautiful alchemical work which contains manuscripts from a variety of sources. Or it's put together. I believe it's a 16th or 17th century work, and I go over that a little bit in the companion video as well. Okay? All right, so there's one more thing I want to talk about in the discourse here. There also exists a great variety of liquids. There are many differences between milk, vinegar, spirit of wine, brandy, aqua regia, and common water. Okay, so what is he talking about here? All right, well, Michael Meyer is telling us that there are various solutions that are used to break down metals and plants and whatever. Okay, we talked about some of those. All right, I'm going to mention a few here. All right, there are various solutions that work on specific metals in this case. There's something called aqua fortis, which is a Latin phrase meaning strong water. Okay, and that will break down most metals with the exception of gold. All right, does not break down gold. To break down gold, we're looking at aqua regia, okay? Aqua regia will break down gold and many other metals. Now, to get the specifics on this, you'll have to check into the companion video. Sorry, just having some fun. But I do go into more detail concerning these solutions, okay? There's also vinegar, which is used in the alchemical process. In fact, what alchemists would do is they would take take wine. They buy a good bottle of wine and they let it go bad, okay? And they would distill it and they get this powerful vinegar out of it, okay? And that vinegar can be used to break down matter as well, okay? And then there's one more thing that's kind of weird, unspoken perhaps by most people, but if you're an alchemist, you know all about it, and it's urine.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin.
We interrupt this video on urine to bring you a video on urine. Okay. What I need to talk about is since I recorded that video and up until the post-production, I did some more research concerning the golden liquid that comes from us. Anyway, there was an alchemist from the 1600s named Hennig Brand, and Hennig Brand worked with various types of solutions and fluids and things like that. Well, at some point, urine found its way into his laboratory, and he began working with it. And after distilling it and putting it into a flask, he put it on his athanor, and it began to turn red hot and bubble, and this liquid came out of the top and burst into flames. And so he was able to capture some of that liquid, which had a green glow to it. And he found that it glowed in the dark and was just fascinated by this product that had come from human urine. What he discovered in actuality was phosphorus. And this famous painting demonstrates that moment when Hennig Brand, working with human urine, discovered phosphorus. So hats off to Hennig Brand for discovering phosphorus from human urine. Truthfully, all kinds of things are utilized in the alchemical process. And remember, we're talking about hundreds of years ago when people didn't have the understanding that we have now. And they experimented with things. But you know what? Through those experiments, some pretty amazing stuff came to be. So let's get back to our video on urine.
We now return you to our regularly scheduled programming.
So that pretty much does it for emblem number 3, and I hope it's made sense, and I hope you've gained some insight into the mind of Michael Meyer. I hope I'm correct in my research here. Okay, so the one thing left to do is to listen to the music to this particular emblem, and it's really, of course, interesting as always, and I've put something together for you. Downloaded the MIDI file from Adam McLean's most wonderful alchemy website, and I've put my own instrumentation that I felt was more period specific, or certainly more colorful in terms of how the music could be portrayed. So let's take a listen to the music, and then we'll go to the conclusion. that beautiful music from the Emblem #3 of Atalanta Fugiens. I hope all of this has made sense. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed, my new subscribers. Thank you so much for those of you who have put comments on the YouTube channel. I truly appreciate your input and comments. Very important to me. It helps guide me in what I need to do and how I should tailor these videos, because I've never done this before. Okay, and thank you to my family and friends who have been very supportive and have given me great input on this stuff. And I just would like to say that I am officially retired. I retired yesterday, June 15th, and so you'll be seeing a lot more of me. There'll be a lot more videos to come, which is, I hope, a good thing. For me, certainly, yeah, I'm having a ball. So anyway, with that, I will say farewell, but not goodbye, and we'll see you when we talk about the next video, Emblem 4 of Atalanta Fugiens, okay? I hope we're learning from this stuff, right? Anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful time, and please be safe and take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.